Good evening. And good. It's been a long conference, definitely. And thank you for coming. I know that it's the last hour. It's sometimes a little bit difficult after so many talks. But let's see if I can show you a couple of things that get you a little bit excited about HTML5 and WebGL in this case. Well, the purpose of the talk is to show you that WebGL definitely is something that it's coming, that it's nowadays possible to deploy professional and monetize applications out of WebGL, and that definitely it has a lot of potential to be a game changer. A little bit about the company that I work for. Luday is a San Francisco-based company. We started developing games for both iOS and Android natively. We suddenly realized that HTML5 could be a very viable option to develop games, and we started developing our own game engine, and saw that there was a lot of potential there, especially for cross-platform, as a lot of you may know. And we have more than 18 million users playing our games nowadays, and pushing this technology that we have to try to help HTML5 developers get professional products out there in the markets. We have already more than 10,000 active registered developers, and more than 500 games have been published using the platform, all in HTML5. A little bit about me, just a brief background. I run engineering at the company. I've been teaching programming for a long time because I've been a university professor and a researcher. And most of my time I develop C++ and Java, and that sounds a little bit strange in an HTML5 Dev conference, but that's our technology, what it demands nowadays. But definitely I'm refurbished to JavaScript and HTML5 because that's what we do on top of the technology. And I designed the core technology that there is in our system. So what is WebGL? Just a brief background. I guess that some of you have gone to these very good talks that have been during the 2 days about WebGL, actually. I'm really excited to see that in the panel there has been 3 or 4 talks really directly focused on WebGL, and I really think that that's a very good sign that there's something going on there. It stands for Web Graphics Library. It's maintained by a non-profit group that it's a Kronos group. It's a web standard API that allows you to access the graphics hardware from the JavaScript. So you are accessing a very low-level API from a web development environment. So I think that per se, it's really cool. I really think that. So it's based, the WebGL 1.0 version that's like the widespread nowadays. It's based on OpenGL ES 2.0. There's a new draft coming out, and it's going to be based on OpenGL ES 3.0 with some cool advanced techniques. And it's available for the major desktop browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari, and definitely one thing that I really think it's really exciting is that Microsoft finally it's supporting this technology, and I really think that that's great for not just the HTML5 development community, but also for the users themselves. Supporting standards, I think, is a great option, definitely. If you want to, those links are quite useful if you want to see if your browser just supports WebGL, and you can see the status of the different versions of the browsers that are out there and how well they support WebGL nowadays. So what are the advantages of WebGL? I guess that you may know about this, but it's accessing a very low-level hardware management from still without leaving your web development environment and web execution environment. And I really think that that's very powerful because you have all the advantages of the web that you already know, like it's cross-platform, but still you can do a lot of things that they were forbidden until now for web developers because accessing the native side was really, really complicated. And this kind of technology allows us to access this levels of development. So you still have JavaScript because you're in the web environment, so you can use this language that some people may like it, some people dislike it, but definitely it's the tool that we're using for the web. It makes a lot of sense that it's JavaScript or some interpreted languages at least. And it's very good for prototyping, definitely. It's a language that has a lot of potential for a lot of stuff. And C++ lover is talking here, so I mean, definitely JavaScript, it's a good language for a lot of stuff. You can execute and you can update your content anytime and anywhere. That I really think is a very cool feature from the web. And if you export that to gaming or like 3D graphics, that's really something that it's not out there very common. So. It also integrates with the document level. I don't know how many of you have gone to the GU presentation that have been before this talk. No? They showed a very nice demo showing videos playing in a 3D environment. So like, I really think that's something, that kind of integration is also very powerful, and it enables a lot of new different interactions with the final user. And still, the good thing from JavaScript and HTML5 is that apart from these new APIs that are coming, there are options, and I will talk about that later, to access native features in some environments, like mobile, where accessing native features, it's key to make a successful app. So you still have that. That option exists nowadays. So also great communication, of course. I mean, the web it's meant to be for communication. So you have all these tools like HR, you have RESTful APIs that you can access with Ajax, and you have like tons of tools for communication, like even the new WebSocket implementation for communication, WebRTC, that it's really looking very good and very promising. But let's see WebGL in action. For commercial purposes, there are tons of things that you can do. I'm having some problems with the rendering here, so let's hope that the Wi-Fi is working well. I wanted to have these demos already loaded. But this is a quite well-known. If you have looked for WebGL stuff in the web, maybe you have seen this. Have you seen this demo already? Yes. It's quite a known demo, and I really think it's cool because it just shows you the power of showing something that it's sexy, like these kind of cars, in a very nice way and without no plugins. It's completely integrated in your web environment, so you can even just purchase the car if you want it from here, if you have a web app directly there. You know what I mean, right? So you have this, you can select different models. So everything is it's a cool demo. And actually it's a quite old demo, I would say. And I have seen this demo running in mobile, and it just looks gorgeous also. So. But also for games, and that's what I was talking about, right? And I have some other games that maybe some of them you have already seen. I really think that there are some very good examples of things that you can do. Anyway, there's a list, like a blog, that it's updating a list the most well-known games in WebGL out there, and you can just go to that link and you can just see the whole list. It's getting bigger, definitely. One of them is Play Tang World, that I really think that it's still quite old demo, but I really love this old demos. I really think that they push the boundaries when this technology was still emerging, and people took a lot of time and effort to develop this kind of demo. So I really think that it's worth it to see it. Have you seen this demo? No? I really think it's a cool demo. I mean, it's definitely not like it has some things that you have to still work on, like maybe a better AI for the enemies and stuff, but I really think that the idea by itself is cool. The result, the graphics look really good. I don't know what happened there. I really think it's a cool demo, so definitely check it out. Maybe the connection that I have is not that good here. I'm gonna just close these tabs because this way, unless my laptop is gonna. Trigger Rally, I'm not going to even try to load it because it takes some time here and the Wi-Fi is not that good, but definitely give it a look. I mean, still, it's a demo that needs a little bit more polish, but definitely it's a great demo, a great game in this case, because you can definitely play that game. But also I wanted to show these other games that maybe if you have seen them, you didn't know that they were based on WebGL. And this game here actually is built in an open source rendering framework that it's actually in between a complete game engine and just programming everything from scratch. But everything, it's a cool demo that's to show you that all these things that you're seeing here are WebGL, just running there. So, and it still looks 2D. I don't know how many of you are iOS developers, for example, or native developers, or have done something in the native side. For example, if you know Cocos 2D or these kind of frameworks, all of the frameworks that are nowadays for both iOS and Android, that they are meant to be for 2D, they're using OpenGL in the background. And that means that it's a 3D capable technology, but it's being used for 2D. So it's exactly the same for WebGL. It happens exactly the same thing. So, and just the last game, I don't know if you have seen this game. I really think it's one of the best polished games out there. And it has a fallback also for Canvas. I will talk a little bit about that. But I really think it's definitely worth it to look at it. I mean, it has, I don't know if you can hear, yeah, more or less. You can just throw water. You have to save those people there. And definitely, I can definitely say, and I think that you would agree, that this looks like a professional game, completely finished and ready to go and ship it, right? So, okay. So those are a couple of examples of games that you can find nowadays, and there are tons of them. So if you go to that list, and there are more coming, that's the good thing. And I will show you a couple of demos afterwards. So is it just for 3D? No. I really think it's a misconception, because most of the demos that they are shown with WebGL are 3D because it's more spectacular and it's something that you cannot do. Well, it's much harder and less performant if you do it with the regular Canvas 2D context. So that's why most of the demos related to WebGL are 3D. But definitely 2D games can benefit from WebGL. So that's also very good news. It's not just for 3D games, it's also for 2D games. It's good for 2D games too. A little bit of differences between the Canvas 2D and the 3D and the WebGL context. The Canvas 2D is a very high-level API for drawing things. It's still in between a really high-end game engine and just a rasterizer, but definitely it's a little bit too high level for some things if you really want to go to the metal or talk to the metal directly. So you have primitives, you have complex paths, you have gradients. WebGL, on the other hand, it just talks directly to the GPU, and the good thing is that you have some program level code and you have some shader level code in the GPU. And I wanted to show you just a brief example of how to start WebGL. I guess that maybe if you just follow any tutorial, you have this. You just create a canvas, and from the canvas, you access a context. That's going to be a different context. So instead of having 2D context, you have WebGL context in that sense. The only thing is that to draw anything with WebGL, as it is based in OpenGL ES 2.0, you need shaders. And you need two kinds of shaders. Vertex shaders to just modify your geometry, and pixel shaders or fragment shaders, what are called, just to draw the final colors to the screen. So this is like the simplest vector shader that you can have, and this is like the simplest fragment shader that you can have, definitely. So the basic steps: initialization phase, just retrieve the WebGL context, set up WebGL data, write buffers, textures, lights, stuff like that, load the shader programs, update the render loop, update your logic, and render your application with the shaders that I showed you, right? So that's everything that you have to do. And my point with all these things is that this is an application in WebGL, right? So if you start from scratch and you learn WebGL, it's exactly the same as you find in the native side, that you have to do a lot of stuff. And as you can see here, you have to load your shaders, you have to load the buffers for your geometry, you have to do quite a lot of stuff. But as you can see, this is a web page. I don't know if you can see it, but now I'm finishing with the body and the HTML tag, right? And the result of this, like I would say like 150, 200 lines of code, there you go. You have a nice, awesome result that it's going to be a triangle and a quad, right? So my point here is WebGL is amazing. I really think that it's a great tool and a very powerful tool, but definitely it takes some skills. I mean, you need to learn all these things, and it takes some time, right? So, but definitely you will learn how the GPU works. I really think that is exciting as an engineer, and I hope that if you're engineers and developers, you will think similarly. But definitely it's not easy, right? So here I give you a couple of links so you can start with WebGL. If you really want to go deep down to and talk to the metal, you can learn from there. And actually, I really think it's a great idea just to start and get the initial look and feel of how things are developed. But that was hard, right? Like, definitely, it's not an easy thing. So there are things that are called game engines, okay, or WebGL engines in this sense. There are APIs that they're on top of all those things that you have seen, the shaders and the loading the geometry and everything, and it gives you a much more, I would say, human-friendly API and developer-friendly API, so you can speed up the process of developing your app, right? So, or your game. There is a list of HTML5 game engines out there, so someone is taking care of looking at the different engines out there, just giving them a try and put them there and seeing what are the differences that there are in between them. And I really think is a good resource. If you have more information, you can contact them, and I really think that having that list is great. One of the most known is 3JS. 3JS, the good thing from this game engine is that it's community driven. So there are a lot of tools coming out from the community. So I really think it's a great starting point. And I really think that a lot of projects that you have seen on the web have been developed with this engine. Of course, for some things, definitely 3JS has its limitations. And definitely I will talk about a little bit about how to choose between one game engine or the other. Glue engine has been publicly announced in this conference, so that's definitely an option that I will definitely look into. And we've been working with them for a while now, and I can tell that the results are really, really good. So check it out, please. Play Canvas, I really think is another great tool. I will talk a little bit about those two engines a little bit more, because I think they're having a very good approach just to justify the whole purpose of this talk, that I really think that WebGL is transforming something here, and we will see why. And also Construct2 in the sense of 2D. There's also Impact.js. There are tons of game engines out there. So this is just a selection that I did, and that I think that they're doing pretty well. So. Or also Pixie.js, sorry, I forgot about this. And it's the game that you saw, Run Pixie Run. It's been developed with that engine. In this case, Pixie.js is like the lowest engine that you can find, because it's all programmatic and it's really just the rendering engine, more or less. So, but I really think it's cool. You can even look at the source code. It's open source, so I really think it's a very nice. So about the two game engines that I mentioned, that they were Goo and Play Canvas, I really think that their approach, I love it, because I really think that they are showing why the web has a lot of potential for becoming a game changer in the game industry, or even in the app rich internet application environment. So this is a video that you can find in the Play Canvas website.
Meet James. He's a programmer and a designer, and he wants to make a game. So he signs into Play Canvas. He opens up our web-based game development tools, and he starts to build a classic. It's a side-scrolling platform game, like Mario, but this time in HTML5 and in 3D. He's not much of an artist, but Play Canvas is a community of game developers, and he comes across Tom, who's a great artist. Through the site, James invites Tom into his project, and they start working simultaneously, in real time. On the left in London, James concentrates on programming the gameplay. He uses our code editing tools to program against the Play Canvas API, he animates the player character, and in no time at all has the game up and running. On the right, in New York, Tom uses his artistic eye to add 3D models, build the environment, and tune the lighting. Meanwhile, back on the left, James is finishing up by adding collectible gems. When they're finished, with a single click, their game is published live to the web, and quickly gets featured on the front page of playcanvas.com. Because they're using Play Canvas, there is no hosting and no scaling to worry about. Because they're using Play Canvas, their game is just a link, instantly shareable and nothing to install. And because they're using Play Canvas, their game works everywhere. Your laptop, your tablet, and your phone.
So, yeah, well, the idea here is that the web, it's communication oriented. So as you can see, you can collaborate. So these kind of tools, everything is going to make, they're going to make a difference for WebGL in this sense. They're going to offer non-programmer developers and designers a way of developing rich internet applications and also games, of course. And this video is from Goo in this case, and I really think that their approach it's very similar. It's the idea is to have very powerful tools so you can develop rich internet applications on the web. And of course, it is showing, this video is showing the advantages not just for the developers, but also for the consumers. And I really think that is key for something that you want to monetize, you want to build a business out of it. So. Oh. What happened there? Sorry. Sorry about that. So two great examples of what are the advantages of the web and having these technologies to enable those, both for developer perspective and the consumer perspective. So some tips to select what game engine could be the best. It is a hard choice, but definitely there are some things that you can take into account. Things like it does support 2D or 3D or both. And if it's 2D, I would definitely recommend you if it has a fallback to Canvas. And can someone tell me why? That would be interesting to have a fallback to Canvas 2D if we know that WebGL is better nowadays. Someone? Lack of support, that's a very good answer. I mean, Canvas is wider, has a wider support nowadays, and I really think it's a good option still to have it there for some legacy browsers or some legacy users. So definitely, but that's if you're going 2D. Does it have an editor of tools? I really think that is also something that it should be very important for you to take into account. Is it open source, or at least is it extensible? Do I have the option to write my own code and plug it in somehow and modify the game engine? I really think that is important too. What games or apps have been developed and deployed to the markets? That's also something that I really think that it could be very interesting for you to look for. Does it have a pipeline? That's I mean, with the pipeline, I mean, does it give you the tools? So if you are a designer, you have your graphics artists, and they develop something. Can you just plug it into the game or into the application in a very easy way? That's I really think also very important. And that has an option to really export to cross-platform. I mean, I really think that one of the advantages of these is that you can go everywhere. So does it have the option for going, especially for mobile? So. And that last key, that last point, I really think is key for the development and the spread of WebGL as a technology. And I really think that it has been a lot of focus on the desktop nowadays, but it's changing that because mobile devices are slowly, but they're getting WebGL support. And that's what Lude does in this case. And it's just trying to support that and try to push it a little bit farther and provide not only access to execute WebGL on mobile devices, also Canvas 2D, of course, but also give a unified environment so you can execute your game. So I really think that that is very important. If you go to iOS, you will find some features that are missing. If you go to Android, you will find some features that are missing. And not only that, in between different versions of iOS and different versions, especially on Android, you will find different features. So I really think that that is really something to take into account and something that you should definitely look for. So nowadays, iOS doesn't support it. There are some things that you can do, but definitely not. You can deploy a final application nowadays. So I think for that matters, iOS, there's no support, official support at least. In Android, for 4.0 and beyond, the major web browsers, they have support for WebGL. BlackBerry has a very good WebGL support from the beginning. Tyson has WebGL support. Firefox OS has WebGL support. So the new emerging markets for HTML5 have support for WebGL. So it's there, definitely. And but the thing is that it's something that it's really exciting, but I'm sorry, I mean, no one plays in the browser in mobile. I mean, think about it. I mean, if you think about how much time do you spend on the browser on the desktop, it's insanely crazy. I mean, I do everything there. I mean, I even write documents. I have my spreadsheet there. I'm 80% of my time on my email. So that's the browser that I use for everything. But on my mobile, the browser, I use it, but I don't use it that much because I have another option that it's a market and I have apps for that, right? So if you are developing an app or you're developing a game, definitely if you want to go to these markets, to mobile markets, you don't really want to go to the browser. You really want to go as a native app. And not only that, you want to access some monetization channels that are out there. I mean, you want in-app purchases inside your games. You want advertising with the native SDKs on your game. You want push notifications. And all those things, the web doesn't support them nowadays. But there are ways to access those features. So what are the options to deploy WebGL if I'm talking about cross-platform? So definitely there are. There's a project called Ejecta.gl, and Ejecta.gl allows you to deploy in iOS. The only problem for Ejecta.gl, I really think is amazing technology. The only problem is that it's a little bit more homemade, so you have to like execute and compile everything on your device, on your platform, and then you can deploy your application. So it's it's not very user friendly, but definitely it's a great tool. And the other problem is that it's only for iOS. And the other option is Lude, all right? I mean, we really think that the WebGL what we have is a JavaScript virtual machine that is going to run your code and is going to run your JavaScript and HTML. And we just took a JavaScript virtual machine, just modified a little bit, just to make it run much faster. And also we mapped the HTML5 APIs that we thought that they were most interesting directly to the metal. So that's why we get a very good performance. And one of the APIs that we mapped is WebGL. So you have the same environment in every device. That's really something that if you face deploying something on mobile, that you will face these kind of problems of if I go to iOS, I have this feature. I go to Android, I don't have it. Or in between versions of Android, I don't have that feature. In our platform, everything is exactly the same. It's exactly the same environment, exactly the same features that you have all cross-platform. It's hardware accelerated, I mentioned, and definitely you can, if you really want to see some demos, I can show you later, but definitely I can tell you that there's no browser that is running, in this sense, especially the Canvas, faster than ours. Maybe the same speed, but not even faster. So that's something that we put a lot of effort in. And it's an easy to use environment. We have a launcher app, so you can just take I will show it to you later, but you can just take your app and you can just execute it there and you can test it. We have some profiling tools there, and it's both for iOS and Android, so you test everything directly on your mobile. And we also have a cloud compiler. So once you test everything in that app, you just go to the cloud and you just get the final result as a bundle for different platforms. We also have extensions, and these APIs, everything else is HTML5 compliant, but we have extensions for things that are missing in the HTML5 standard, like monetization APIs. We have one single API for iOS, Android, Amazon, and the new markets that are coming, like Tizen and Google Wallet and stuff like that. So I think that's very useful for you. You just develop once, and definitely you can deploy everywhere. We take care of all the details of those APIs. Native ad networks, you have push notifications, social network integration with Facebook, with the native SDK, et cetera, et cetera. This is more or less the final step that you do. You just go with your HTML5 and JavaScript, just go to the cloud and just get the final results there. But let's see some WebGL running. Yeah, I really think that's like the best way to see that this is our reality and that you can export these applications. And I'm going to show you the environment that we use. Actually, I'm going to start with a demo from Goo, actually, from one of the engines that you saw earlier. If he wants to start. Now. So this demo has been developed using the Goo engine, and we've been working for, I would say, a couple of weeks, and we just made it run perfectly fine. There were actually just very simple glitches that we found just to solve them. So you can see that it's working. This is an iPad 2, by the way, and definitely you can just move the character around. You can actually even go to the underwear scene that it has. Everything it's looking gorgeous, and definitely running this on an iPad, everything is very cool. And it's not just that it's running. You can deploy a native application. Actually, Marcus from Goo just showed an actual application deployed to his device, and he can just run it. You can even upload it to the market, and you can just publish it. So here we have to do a little bit of optimization with the physics, but we have physics bindings for the native side, so you can get a much better performance in that sense. So, but as you can see, it looks really, really good. The thing is that I don't have any way to show you the Android version on the screen, but definitely this is a Nexus 7, and you can see that it's exactly the same demo running in Android with, I would say, really cool graphics in the sense, right? It's exactly the same WebGL running in both. I also want to show you some other demos that I have here, and actually this is going to be something that no one has seen before this conference. And it's a demo. It's a game that we are developing using our technology to showcase that WebGL it's definitely an option for deploying successful games. This game actually it's still on development, so it's not a finished product. But it will have multiplayer using Game Center and Google Play games, game services. It will also have leaderboards using, in this case, Facebook. It will also have in-app purchases. It will have different modes. So I really think it will be a game that it has a lot of depth. And the good thing is that it's exactly the same game in the desktop and exactly the same game in mobile, both for Android and iOS. So I don't know what's wrong with the, sorry. I think this iPad's connector is not very, but it worked when I came, so it should work. Okay. So we have to still improve the loading time because it takes a little bit of time to load. But I want you to see that. Oh, sorry. This cable is really heavy, and I think it's pulling the connector out. But anyway, if you really want to come and see it later, I can show it to you. Everything that looks gorgeous. I mean, it's a basketball game with physics. You can see that this is an iPad 2 too, and it's running at, it's in like nearly 50 frames per second with all the physics just running. So it has power-ups and power-downs that you can send to the other player playing, in this case in iOS using Game Center. And as I told you, it has all these features, all these native features that I mentioned. And exactly the same game, let me just show it to you on, You have different modes like level ups, and it just the hoop makes bigger, it makes it smaller. The ball makes it gets bigger, it gets smaller. Let me show it to you on Android. And it has music and everything, but yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Sound is working perfectly fine. As you can see, well, here you're getting 40 frames per second, so it's quite stable. And so this is the environment that you can expect from the platform. So you have a bunch of demos that you can download. You have full source code of those demos. You also have a testing environment where you can put a URL, and you can just introduce a URL of your local area network, and you can access your server, and you can execute your code. Just go back, modify something, just reload, and you see it directly on your device. And you can also have this option of zipping the whole code and uploading to the device, and you can execute it from there. As you can see, I have tons of demos here and games. The cool thing is that once you test it there and you have all the APIs that I mentioned for the extensions there, you can just go to the cloud compiler and you can just get the final bundles to get them to the stores. So as you see, it's quite a straightforward process. So some tips for WebGL on mobile. I mean, just really briefly. The first tip, and I really think that this is the most important tip of all of them, it's understand that a mobile device is not a desktop. Okay? I really think that web developers, they forgot about this detail. And definitely, it is a very important detail. You cannot expect the same performance, the same memory amount, the same CPU processing power on a mobile device, even if they're amazingly fast. And I wouldn't even imagine that we could have something holding my hands like this now, but like 10 years ago. But definitely, it's not the same. And that's really important. You cannot expect the same thing. The processing power is not the same. The memory is really limited. There are different resolutions that you have to support, and that is really important. We give some tools for that. We give automatic scaling of your game, so it just adapts directly to the screens with different options. I think that's something really useful in mobile. We give some tools for memory management too, but definitely for all the tools that we can give you, your code is the key point here to make it run in mobile as it should. So you also have to take care that the input is going to be different. A lot of people say, okay, the mouse events should be the same. Well, they are not the same, and they're not handled the same way on mobile. So also pack your textures as much as you can. This is something related more to graphics themselves, but definitely I think it's a great option for many reasons. It just gives you lower memory footprint, and it also gives you much more performance because you don't make a lot of calls to the GPU, and you will learn that whenever you start developing with WebGL. Also, the downloading time should be less because you don't make so many calls to the server to download the asset. So, and do not load, please, what is not necessary. I mean, just go. If you're loading one level, just load that level. Whenever you finish, you just wipe all the information out. We give some tools for that, actually, and then just load the next level, the next things that you need. I mean, don't try to, yeah, I know that in the desktop we will work, but it has 8 gigabytes of memory, but you won't have that in mobile. So that's a little bit of a constraint, definitely. And keep as I mentioned with the packaging of the textures, keep the calls to the GPU as small as you can. I mean, just try to make as many calls to the GPU as you can in one call. I mean, just pack all of them, like for example, with your vertex information. Don't try to load every single triangle that you have. Just give it a huge array of information and just send it, for example, and things like that. So communicating with the GPU, it's interesting, but the lower that you make, the better. So try to keep those things lower for better performance. So I wanted just to give you an overview of WebGL, what WebGL is, what is the state nowadays with regarding the games that you can find that I really think that are quite polished, the technologies that you can use to build those games, that I really think that they're coming, I really think it's an exciting time for WebGL nowadays. I mean, we're seeing these companies that are developing great tools, these other companies like ourselves that we are trying to give you an option when you want to deploy natively, and definitely, I mean, I really think that WebGL has a lot of potential to become a game changer in the game industry and also in the app industries for the desktop and for mobile, for cross-platform, definitely. So, thank you very much. I don't know if you have any questions. Sure.
Do you know of any game studios that are using WebGL?
WebGL? Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, for example, Construct2, their game engine is WebGL enabled. So whenever it detects that WebGL is there, all the games that are developed with Construct2 definitely are deployed with WebGL enabled. They're 2D, and you won't notice it, the difference from the canvas, apart from the performance. But definitely, all the games that are coming from Construct2, that there are some that are professional studios developing it, definitely they are using it. I can tell you some other really tier 1 companies that are using technologies that they support a fallback for WebGL, mainly for 2D in this case. I haven't seen a lot of big studios that are using WebGL for big things. There's one that you should definitely look at it, that it's Artillery. Artillery, they're developing both tools, but first, a very big game and a real-time strategy game, very similar to StarCraft, actually. And I have seen a couple of demos, and definitely looks very, very good. So, I mean, still, it's early, definitely. I mean, the WebGL, it's just coming. As you can see, still in some platforms, there are not official ways of getting them, apart from some technologies that are out there. But yeah, I really think that a lot of people are getting excited because of these tools, because of the results that you can get. But yeah, there are some studios. Mainly nowadays, 2D WebGL.
Have there been any numbers run between systems that don't have hardware acceleration and the switch off between running WebGL or Canvas 2D in that case?
Yeah, well, yeah. For example, Iskira, the developers of Construct2, they have a blog post about that. As they have their game engine fallback for Canvas and WebGL, they have some measurement about how many sprites on the screen you can have. And definitely for 3D, you cannot do that because, well, I mean, I mean, there are some game engines that they use the 2D canvas to do the rendering of all the polygons. I definitely wouldn't recommend to do that. But there were some experiments out there, and it's really fun because it's like an old days when we were just drawing all the pixels by ourselves with no GPUs. But definitely for 2D, there are some studies there. If you send me an email, I can just point you to some blog posts about that regard, definitely. So, yeah. And the performance is much better with WebGL, much, much better. If you know what you're doing with WebGL, definitely you have more power than the Canvas API that is a little bit too high level. Don't get me wrong, Canvas API is just awesome, and thank God that we have it. But WebGL definitely, it just wipes out the Canvas in that regard if you are doing things well. So, some other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you.